A guest stole our Thanksgiving turkey. I'm confused and frustrated and need to vent. We hosted Thanksgiving this year, husband and I, our two kids, husband's siblings and nieces and nephews, and most importantly, husband's gravely ill mother. We're all at peace that this Thanksgiving and Christmas will probably be our last holiday together. It's been emotional and exhausting, but we really wanted to make a memorable day that everyone would enjoy. Our daughter Mary is visiting from college, and one day before she flew in, she says her boyfriend Chris is actually flying to our city to visit friends over the break. Mary asked if he could come over for Thanksgiving. We've never met Chris before, but to be honest, we're not wild about him. As soon as Mary started dating him, we started seeing some worrying changes in her. Our son, who is just a couple of years older, confided in us that Mary is getting into the party scene largely because of Chris. We've tried gently bringing up our concerns with Mary, but she shuts it down and has started to pull away from us. So because we didn't want to alienate her, we said Chris could visit, but they need to stay in separate rooms. She said that won't matter because he's booked a hotel room and she'll be staying there with him the whole weekend. Okay. Cut to Thanksgiving and Mary and Chris arrive. He's not the greatest. He makes a couple of rude and snide remarks throughout the visit and hits the alcohol way harder than is appropriate. My family was in a very earnest mood, if that makes sense. Lots of emotion, and he was just dismissive and flippant and cast a shadow on everything. At one point, everyone started telling stories about their favorite holidays at mother-in-law's house when she would go all out for family parties. My husband and I stopped working in the kitchen to join the conversation. When we go back to the kitchen after maybe half an hour, I went to check the turkey in the oven and it was gone. Completely missing. I asked my husband if he did something with the turkey, and he was just as confused as I was. We looked all over the kitchen and house and couldn't find it. We go out to the living room and ask everyone if they know what happened to the turkey, and no one knows what we're talking about. At this point, I realize Chris isn't around. I pull Mary to the side and ask where he is because I don't want to jump to conclusions and make accusations. She said he had to leave to go meet up with friends. I asked her to text him and asked if he knows what happened to the turkey, and Mary kind of rolled her eyes. At this point, it's dawning on me that Chris probably stole the turkey and left out the back door while we were sharing stories with mother-in-law, but I'm so confused why anyone would do something like that. I can't bring myself to actually make the accusation out loud. So we were left in the terrible position of having everything else ready but no turkey. We had to break it to the family that we had no turkey, and everyone is confused and sad. Mary said she had to get going to an event with Chris, which deeply disappointed me. I told her as much, and she said that she'll see us again later this weekend. My in-laws went driving around to restaurants and grocery stores and pieced together enough stuff that we were able to have a meal much later than expected, but it felt like the whole day was ruined. Everyone was kind of murmuring together about Chris leaving around the time the turkey disappeared, but no one wanted to actually accuse him out loud because it's such an explosive allegation and there's not actually any proof. I'm just confused why anyone would do such a thing and heartbroken because my mother-in-law didn't deserve this at all. At one point, she teared up but pulled it together. I'm also increasingly angry with my daughter because I feel like I can't see anything because she'll just pull away more. Okay, they have an update. I was talking with my son today and he told me that last night Chris started taunting him over text about the missing turkey. So that settles it. Chris stole the turkey basically as a big fuck you to all of us. My son didn't say anything at the time because he didn't want to make people more upset than they already were. I've tried calling and texting Mary, but she is so far ignoring me. That's all I have to say about this.
I, 16 male, was born to my mom when she was 15, and I've never known my real dad. My mom didn't drop out of school or anything, and the year after I was born, she started dating Jack, and when they went to university, I obviously got left behind with my grandparents. Mom and Jack got good degrees, got married, and moved to a city by Vancouver. My mom's always been in my life. She would still come home every weekend just to cuddle me, and she would always give me these nicknames, but calling me her special guy would be her favorite one. She'd always bring me back presents and gifts and spend the whole time playing with me. She's the one who paid for my tutoring and after school stuff and would try and make it to games and stuff like that. Jack wouldn't always come with her, but it was always fun when he would. He's taken me fishing with him a lot of times, and we even went camping for 2 weeks together once, but never again because I hate camping. However, when I was 10, my mom and Jack had a daughter and then another girl 3 years ago. I don't really know them, especially because my mom stopped coming over as much after they were born. We don't cuddle anymore. We did that on my birthday, but that's it. No more cute nicknames for me except special guy. It's like they all got transferred to her daughters. No more gifts, and the worst part is she doesn't come to my games anymore. It was okay with me before because they still had a spare room in their house and I could go there when it's time for university. Yesterday, my mom FaceTimed me and she had a big announcement that she was going to have another baby and it was a boy, and now she'd have 2 special guys. I guess she saw how sour my face was because she asked what's wrong, and I don't know, I just admitted how jealous I was that her daughters got so much more and now her son was going to get her and there wouldn't even be space for me when I had to go to university. And I guess what I said affected her because she started crying and wouldn't stop and I had to hang up. My grandparents are mad that I made her upset and think that I don't value them now or something. Jack phoned me and he's mad because my mom thinks it's a mistake now to have another kid, and also mad at me because he was like, why would I ever think that they wouldn't have room for me? I feel like I really messed up by telling her that, and now here I am at school and I can't stop thinking about it.
Am I wrong for sitting on my husband's lap during Thanksgiving dinner because all of the chairs at the table were taken? I, 28 female, have been with my husband Sean, 33 male, for 2 years. Married for 5 months. Most of his family are decent people, but his mom can be a little passive-aggressive and tends to criticize me a lot. Sean sees it as her still not getting used to me being around, but I don't know because she treats his ex, Jalissa, good. Mother-in-law says that Jalissa has been around the family for ages and her past with Sean never affected her relationship with her. Fine. I never minded her attending every holiday and being around until yesterday. We had Thanksgiving at my mother-in-law's house. Sean went there before me, and when I arrived, it was already dinner time. Everyone was seated, and I saw that all the chairs were taken. I asked mother-in-law why she didn't save me a seat, and she said sorry, and that one of her granddaughters decided to show up last minute and the chair was taken. I looked at her, then at Julissa, who was sitting next to Sean, and tried to point out how I was more deserving of her chair since I'm the daughter-in-law. I know I shouldn't have said it, I know. Mother-in-law flat out said that Julissa is as much family as me and that it was rude to imply otherwise. Julissa was nodding confidently while glancing at me. I was so upset I wanted to leave, but decided to just sit on my husband's lap and act as casual as possible. I sat on his lap asking if he was okay with it. Don't worry, I'm petite and he's strong-built. And started eating so casually while smiling and complimenting the food and mentioning to Sean how warm and comfortable his lap was now and then. The table went awkwardly silent. Brother-in-law would try to break the silence and change the subject, but it somehow goes back to being awkward. Mother-in-law and Julissa were barely eating and were staring at each other, then at me, eyes wide open. I'm sorry, I still cannot get over the fact that your husband's ex is at your Thanksgiving dinner. Minutes later, Julissa excused herself to the bathroom and so did mother-in-law. It was still awkward, but I did my best to focus on dinner. Sean was eating as well. Later, there was just so much tension and mother-in-law was barely able to speak after Julissa left. She left early, like right after dinner. Sean and I went home and mother-in-law tried calling, but then called Sean and texted me saying that what I did was inappropriate and that I ruined Thanksgiving dinner and made it awkward. She said it wasn't her fault that chairs were taken and that I could have dragged a chair from the kitchen but acted childishly and made Julissa and family uncomfortable with how inappropriate I was. I need to mention that even if I took a chair from the kitchen, there was not enough space at the dinner table to fit the chair. Everyone was sitting next to each other. I don't understand why his ex. One is why his ex is there. Why she has a seat over you. I don't understand. Like, isn't it awkward on her half? Like, why is she there? I would never want to do that. Like people who go to your ex's Thanksgiving dinners and you don't have kids together. Why do you go? Am I wrong for canceling the plans for Thanksgiving after my parents called my brother's baby their first grandchild? I, 32 female, have been with my wife Ava, 34 female, for 8 years now, but we've been married for 5. She was a single mom of 3 kids when we started dating. She had 2 daughters, now 10 and 12, and a son, now 16. I've watched these kids grow up. I've read the bedtime stories, done bath time, the first days of school, PTA meetings, all of it. I very much consider them to be my kids, and they've been calling me mom for almost 6 years now. My brother Ivan, 28 male, just had a baby girl with his fiancée Sarah, 27 female. I love my niece and my kids adore their cousin. My kids have been the only grandchildren on my side of the family since Ava and I got together, and there's never been a moment where my kids and my wife were treated like they didn't belong. My brother is their uncle, my mom and dad are their nana and pop. The kids see my family as their family, and I always thought that my family felt the same way about them. The kids and I were over at my brother's house just hanging out, and my parents ended up dropping by with gifts for my niece. Ivan laughed when he saw the toys and told my mom and dad that they're going to end up spoiling her rotten. My mom said since my niece is their first grandchild, of course they have to spoil her. My kids were sitting in the living room, and all of us and my youngest daughter looked hurt when she realized what my mother said. My son and my 12-year-old didn't fully react to it, but I could tell it bothered the both of them so. Sarah spoke up and said, "Oh, you mean first grandbaby, not first grandchild." My dad shook his head and replied that my niece was their first grandchild. I didn't want my kids to keep sitting there and listening to that, so I handed my son my keys and told him to wait in the car with his sisters. When they were gone, I asked my parents why the hell they'd say that my kids weren't their grandchildren, and my mom said they couldn't be their grandchildren because they weren't really my children. My wife and I were going to be hosting Thanksgiving at our house this year, but I told my parents that if they didn't view my kids as their family, then they could just host a meal at their own house with their real family while I spent the holiday with mine. I left before they could say anything else to me, and my wife and I reiterated to the children that they will always be my kids and I will always be their other mom, regardless of our DNA. My brother is pissed at me now because he thinks I reacted too harshly and that I should try to see where my parents are coming from. My mom texted saying that she and my dad love the kids, but they still aren't their grandchildren, and she hopes that we can come to understand that because she doesn't want this to ruin my niece's first Thanksgiving. I haven't replied back. I meant what I said, but I'm worried that maybe I'm reacting too harshly. Am I wrong for showing my twin sister's OnlyFans to our parents? I, 18 female, and my identical twin sister, 18 female, have always had a competitive relationship. We've always fought over everything, guys, clothes, friends, etc. But our relationship came to a halt a few weeks ago when a mutual guy friend of ours sent me a link to an OnlyFans profile with an attached message that stated, "This you?" Confused, I clicked on the link and was shocked to discover that the profile belonged to my twin sister. The profile picture was very clearly a scantily clad image of her, and the username was my nickname that literally everyone in my life uses. I asked our friend about it, and he told me that he discovered the profile through Twitter and then subscribed to the profile, which included dozens of videos of her doing spicy things to say the least, solo and with partners, all of which with her face showing. I was floored and in a fit of rage showed the profile to her parents. I mean, literally anyone who saw that profile that knows us would immediately assume that it's me, considering she's basically going by my name. Our parents forced her to delete the profile and she hasn't spoken to me since, claiming that I not only ruined her main source of income, but also betrayed her trust. However, I think that she betrayed my trust by going by my nickname. So, am I the asshole?
Am I the asshole for calling my husband unreasonable for canceling the holiday trip? We've been together for 4 years, and I have 2 kids, 17 male and 19 female, and their half-brother is 3 years old. This past week, my husband had a medical emergency with his dad and wanted someone to watch our son. He asked my older son, and he refused because he was going out with his friends, then asked my daughter, but she locked herself in a room to study. I was at the restaurant with my brother meeting his girlfriend for the first time, so I couldn't go either. My husband ended up taking our son with him to the hospital, and his mom watched from there. He came home and lashed out at everyone. He called us selfish and unfeeling, and I tried to explain the kids were busy, but he told me to get the F out with that bull. Am I the asshole for calling my husband unreasonable for canceling the holiday trip? He said my older son could have skipped the hangout and watched his brother, and my daughter could have watched her brother while studying. He scolded me as well, but I told him I couldn't leave lunch with my brother as I wouldn't be able to meet his girlfriend. He yelled some more, then told us he was canceling the family holiday trip for Christmas this year. The 2 older kids were upset and said it was unfair, and I said it was unreasonable to cancel the trip. It's wrong of him to punish the kids and me like that. He refused to discuss it later, and now me and the kids aren't speaking to him, and he's saying good riddance. Now he's saying that he'll be spending Christmas with his family, saying he needs to be around his dad anyway. Am I wrong? Am I the asshole for banning alcohol from Christmas? So my husband's family loves to drink, and every holiday includes multiple bottles of wine and cocktails. I hate drinking and have never drank because my father was an alcoholic. Plus, I think it's childish if you can't have fun without drinking. Well, this year I'm hosting Christmas, and I decided since it's at my house, no alcohol is allowed. We're getting older and it's time to grow up. So when my husband's sister called to ask what she could bring and mentioned a Christmas martini, I told her about the rule. She didn't say much, but she must have told the rest of the family because some of them started texting asking if I was serious. Am I the asshole for banning alcohol from Christmas? My husband's side of the family started texting me and asking if I'm serious about the no alcohol rule. They're saying it's lame, but I'm not budging. Now it turns out my husband's sister is hosting an alternative gathering that almost everyone is choosing to go to instead. It's so disrespectful, all because they would have to spend 1 day sober. My husband told me he talked to his sister and we are invited to her gathering, and he said that we should just go and stop causing issues. But I won't because it's so rude. Now my husband is mad because I'm making him stay home and spend Christmas with me. But it was my turn to host and I chose to have no alcohol.